The great Steve Jobs once said, people do not know what they want until you show it them. Well then, this is the brand new Panasonic GH7, aimed directly at professional video creators. In a world crazy about full frame cameras, what are Panasonic actually offering? This may not be the camera you want, but it might just be the camera you need. Let's unpack what's new. There is a lot new here. We're talking internal RAW, the world's first camera to capture 32-bit audio internally, and so much more. But right before we go diving into all the new features, let's just make sure everyone watching is up to date. The GH cameras from Panasonic is one of their most successful line of cameras they have ever created. And by now, probably most of us already know what they are. But for those of you that don't, Lumix has the S line of cameras for their full frame sensors. Lumix also has the G line of cameras representing their smaller sensor cameras. So the GH line of cameras sits right at the top, the very high end of the G line from Panasonic, bringing us to the GH7. And this is now the latest camera in the line of GH cameras from Lumix. Don't let the little body fool you though, this thing really means business. I'm guessing everybody has so many questions like frame rates and how it compares to the GH6, how it compares to the S5 II. So let's not waste any more time and just dive straight in. So let's start with housekeeping. Lumix did send me this camera. They do not get to see this video before you do. They do not pay me anything. I do not get to keep the camera. It will go back. So the only real reason I'm doing this is because, just like you, I really like cameras. In Lumix's own words, the GH7 has a newly developed 25.2 megapixel MFT sensor. This is a BSI sensor, standing for backside illuminated, which in plain terms means it captures more light. So from that, we should see better low light and some cleaner shadows. It is now equipped with the new phase detect AF system like we have seen in the S5 II. But Lumix did tell me this one is improved once again, so it should be better than the one in the S5 II. And we do have new detection modes like aeroplane, and even new modes inside the older modes, like now under motorcycle we can select helmet. The newly developed sensor from Lumix is equipped with something they are calling dynamic range boost. Now this will give you 13 plus stops of dynamic range, but only when you are shooting in 60 frames per second or below. This sounds like to me it's really similar to Canon's DGO sensor tech. Unlike from Canon though, which is limited to 30 frames per second, this is limited to 60, so it's nice to see we can get a little bit of higher frame rates and still keep the larger dynamic range. While we're on the subject, let's talk about resolutions and frame rates. This camera is capable of capturing 5.8K resolution in open gate all the way up to 30 FPS. You can go up to 60 FPS, but that would be in 5.7K, which is the same resolution but just in 16:9 and not open gate. You'll also be happy to know that you can go all the way up to 120 frames per second in 4K. A lot of people will also be happy to know that you can go all the way down to full HD and still use the phase detect autofocus. This is something I see a lot of people asking for in my comment section regarding older Lumix cameras. So you can capture up to like 5.8K resolution, we have autofocus across the board, and we have 4K up to 120. So the downside must be the codecs, right? Well, it gets even better. This GH7 can now capture internal ProRes RAW. Now this is no small feat. We need to give Lumix their props where it's deserved. Hybrid cameras like this that take photos and have autofocus and IBIS don't normally capture internal RAW. This is something that I really hope continues across the rest of Lumix's lineup. I also hope that it's Contagious, Sony and Canon jump on board. And then there are some other brands who may need to think about their current strategies. I'm looking at you, Blackmagic and Red. There is some limitations when capturing internal RAW though. We are limited to 5.7K up to 30 frames per second. If you want 60 frames per second, you'll have to drop down to 4K. and unfortunately there is no 120 frames per second when capturing internal RAW. But I think we can forgive them, thinking how much they must be pushing out of this little tiny body. We also have all the new features we've come to expect from Lumix, like proxy recording and capture to cloud with Frame.io. We have real-time LUT. If you're like me and you edit in DaVinci Resolve so cannot use ProRes RAW, anything that you can capture internal in RAW, you can also capture in ProRes 422HQ, what is just as good in my own opinion. Unfortunately, this is where I touch on my first negative. There is no internal B-RAW capture with this camera. You can capture B-RAW externally via the HDMI like we have seen before in Lumix cameras, but not internally like the ProRes RAW. I don't know if this is something to do with Blackmagic on their side. I hope not. I hope one day we can get a firmware update, even if it is paid, to get B-RAW internally in this camera, as I believe there are so many Blackmagic users that will love a camera just like this for when they need IBIS and autofocus. We are not done yet though. I'm told from Lumix this is the world's first camera to be able to capture internally 32-bit flow audio. For those that don't know what this means, it basically means that it cannot distort. So this removes the need to adjust audio levels while you are shooting. For fast-paced and run-and-gun filmmakers, this may be the best feature added to a camera in many years. For wedding filmmaking or documentary filmmaking, interviews, to be able to mount a shotgun mic or a lav mic on top of your camera, and while you are capturing in a fast-paced scenario, not have to watch your audio levels, is going to be a game changer. It will just allow you to put so much more attention on other things like exposure, focus, framing. The list just goes on, and this will be a massive improvement. To show how serious Lumix are about this being aimed at professional video creators, they have also released an XLR adapter that goes on top of your camera, works through the hot shoe, so no messy wires, and keeps things clean. This adds 2 full-size XLR inputs with phantom power, an extra 3.5mm jack input, and dedicated game wheel and input selectors, taking the camera to 4 inputs in total. We are talking really high-end cinema camera features on such a tiny little body. I will be doing a dedicated video comparing the new GH7 directly against the S5 Mark II, which is one of my personal favourite cameras I have ever owned. So to make sure you do not miss that, hit the subscribe button, as it will be coming up in the next video or two. I'm going to keep most of my opinions for the full review video when I've spent a little bit more time with the camera, but just to quickly touch on like my first impressions on the build quality, I would say it has definitely earned the H badge in its name. The build quality of this camera feels above the S5 Mark II. It definitely feels like a smaller S1H. This also has the same amazing screen design from the S1H that flips out, twizzles around, but also folds towards you. This really gives you the best of all the worlds, allows you to keep the screen close to the body and small when you need it, also allows you to flip it and twist it in any directions, and then also allows you to have USB and HDMI plugged into the camera without interfering with the screen. We do have big vents either side of the screen on the back of the camera, again just like the S1H. Lumix are referring to this as unlimited recording, intelligent heat processing cooling fan. Whatever that means, I'm not sure, but it definitely sounds like we aren't going to run into any issues with overheating. It's also listed as dust and splash proof with freeze resistance, which sounds good to me. We have more custom buttons than ever, and also we have new latches and locking buttons. This is just a job well done overall, and my first impressions are really good in terms of build quality. We have the same batteries as the S5 line of Lumix cameras, and we have 2 card slots, one being an SD card slot and the second being a CF Express Type B. I love this choice of card slots as you probably need the CF Express for capturing RAW and those high frame rates, high resolutions, but you also have the option to go cheap with that second slot for when you are just capturing H.265 or H.264. There is so much more I need to find out about this camera. I just really need to get out, start shooting with it and find out what it can actually do. Over the next days and weeks, I'm going to be testing this camera non-stop. So if anyone has any questions on it, I will be answering those over in my S52 community. That comes free when you purchase my S5 II Cine Guide. Link to that is going to be in the description below. The GH7 will be shipping in late July and coming in at an RRP of around $2,000. The audio unit on top comes in at an extra $500, but I'll be making so much more content around all this stuff before the shipping date. And if you want to find out how I'll be using it, shooting on it and testing the camera, watch this video here.